Hi everyone, Des here again and welcome along to lecture number 6 of the Advanced Manufacturing Technology module. So today we're going to continue on our journey through AlphaChem and learn about some special geometries. They're a very specialized set of geometries that exist in their own dedicated little panel, their own little menu within AlphaChem. So just for revision, what we did last week was draw some logos that incorporated some sloped lines, and then we went on and investigated some of the other basic features such as editing geometry like copy and scale and rotate, and also how to add some parameters such as dimensions and equals and parallel to geometry such as the arrows down in the bottom right hand corner. Today, as I said a second ago, we're going to move on and talk about special geometries, but before we do that we're going to draw another practice exercise just so we're confident with the creation and editing of some more complicated geometry. This is the drawing we're going to draw. On the top left you can see the actual AlphaChem file has been created. On the top right, if you wish, you can then export that to Inventor and get any number of wireframe models or solid models or mesh models, and at the bottom right hand corner you can see I've exported it to AutoCAD. So all of these programs are pretty good at working with each other. So either take a screen grab of the logo there or access the notes on Learn Online and then move over to AlphaChem and we'll begin drawing it. So moving over to AlphaChem, I'm going to begin by drawing a line, and I'm going to start just at 0, 0 for the time being. I can always move this afterwards. So the first point of that line is going to be at 0, 0. In fact, I want to make that a construction line. So select construction and then line, and the first point will be 0, tab 0, enter, and the line needs to be 140 millimeters horizontally across to the right. So my new coordinate, the coordinate for the other endpoint, will be 140, tab 0, enter. So that's going to represent the line that joins the centers of the circles on each end of the spanner. So be sure to turn off construction now and then go to circle, and in the question I'm given radii, so I'm going to use center and radius. So the first radius is going to be 10 mil and press enter, and it's snapped that onto the right hand side. If it doesn't snap on, you can simply type in the coordinate 140, 0 or turn on the snap tool. Let's call up another circle. This time the radius is 30, enter, and drop one there. And we need one more, which is 12, enter, and drop that there. So let's begin by cutting out the slot that's going to make up the mouthpiece of at the opening of the spanner. So to do that, I need a construction line going from the center point here down at 30 degrees. And we're going to do that in the same way as we did last week. I'm going to go to Edit, Rotate, select this purple construction line and press finish. It wants a base point, so my base point will be the center of that circle, and now you can rotate it as you see fit. Now remember, 180 degrees is vertically across to the left. I need to come down 30 degrees from that, so it's going to be 180 plus 30 in this case, so it's going to be 210 degrees. Enter. How many copies including the original? Well, I want to keep the original, so I'll press 2, press OK, or enter. So what I want to do now is offset this construction line. So I'm going to offset that. The gap itself is 24, so I'm going to offset it 12 mil each side, and I do want to offset it as geometry. So press OK. Click that construction line, and then click anywhere above it, then click the same construction line and anywhere below it. And while I'm here now, I'm going to trim out some of the excess so it looks the part. So go to Trim, select All, and then Finish, and then start clicking away the pieces you don't need. And if you get to the stage where you can't actually trim something, if it won't allow you to trim it, such as this line, it's just a matter of tapping Escape to close the command and deleting it afterwards if you want. But that's a construction line, it's not going to cause me any trouble there. Let's now work on the curves at the top of the spanner, and as you can see from the drawing, there's a curve. I'll just approximate one for a moment. Geometry, circle, 2 points. There's a curve that needs to sit in like that, and I'll just leave it there for a moment. And the gap between the bottom of that circle and that purple line needs to be 15 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is offset this purple line, this construction, by 15. So Edit, Offset, 15, and it's not geometry, it's just going to be another construction line. So deselect offset as geometry. Click the line, and then click anywhere above the line. So now I can see that I have a line that this new circle needs to touch. So I know three things about this new circle. I know its radius 50, I know it touches the green circle there, and it touches the purple geometry somewhere around there, that line. So I can use that to go to geometry, circle, and it's a very particular type of circle. It's this, tangent circles with known radius. So click that command. So the radius has, the circle has a radius of 50, so type in 50 there, and it's going to be a tangent to a line and an arc. So now I'm going to select the circle approximately where the circle is going to touch, and select the line approximately where it's going to touch as well, and it gives me a whole series of circles. They're very faded out, but you can see them. A whole series of circles that meet those conditions. For example, if I right click and go next circle, I can see that this circle also is tangential to the green circle and the line. Next circle, next circle. There's 4 different correct solutions. So if it doesn't automatically select and highlight the one that you want, then simply right click and go next circle, and when you're happy, accept highlighted circle. And there we have it. I won't trim that away just yet because there's another circle. Again, I'm going to guess this just for the moment, and approximately there. You can see there's a circle. In fact, I'd pick it up and move it just so it goes into position a little better. So that circle needs to be approximately, I'll turn off the snap, approximately in there. You can see it touches this small circle at the outside there, and this circle I'm after creating, it touches that at the bottom there. So let's do that again in exactly the same way. So geometry, circle, tangent circle with known radius. This time the known radius is actually 70, and this time it's 2 arcs that it's going to be in tangent or in contact with. So 2 arcs. I'm going to select this green circle approximately there at the bottom, and this green circle the far side there. And you can see it, because I picked the approximate points of tangency, it had a fair idea that that's the circle I was after. So it happened to work out correctly for me. But if it didn't, you'd simply right click and go next circle. But I'm happy with that, so I'll right click, accept highlighted circle. And now I'm going to go to edit and trim. I'm going to select all and then press finish and then clip away the pieces I don't need. Yeah, I'll just do that much for now. So that little green piece there, I can't actually trim that. So I will press delete and delete that. And we're nearly there. I'm now going to do the same thing at the bottom. So at the bottom, edit, offset. This time it's 10 mil down. And I want to offset that not as geometry, but as construction. So leave that deselected. Select that center line and then click anywhere below it. So geometry, circle. This time it's 50 again, and it's a line and an arc. There's the line, there's the arc. I'm happy with that circle straight away, so right click, accept highlighted circle. Call up the same command again. This time it's radius 70, and it's 2 arcs. And I'm going to select the arc there and there. And straight away I'm happy with that circle as well, so right click, accept highlighted circle. And the last couple of jobs we have to do now, we're going to go to edit and trim. We'll select all and then press finish and just trim out the last few pieces we don't need. And tap escape to close the trim command. Yeah, and I've got a couple of pieces now I need to delete. So select delete, that curve and press finish and press OK. Now the construction geometries, the construction lines I should say, are not going to get in the way. You can't accidentally apply a cutter to those. Very soon we're going to start to learn how to put on toolpaths and send cutters along that curve. So if you wanted though, you could hide the construction lines. So over here in layers, just tick the box beside construction. If for some reason if you don't have layers, you go to view, all the way over, show project manager page and click layers. And in this case I don't actually need to do this, but let's say I did not want that little curve there as well. Let's say I just want to cut out the shape of the spanner. Let's go to edit, trim, all, finish and trim out that little piece as well. And tap escape to clear the command. Finally, a Control G shows that this is a very fragmented, very broken piece of geometry. So let's join all that together. So go to Join, All, and Finish. And what you're looking for is a single ghost tool like that. And there we have the spanner that's ready for sending to the part of the software that will allow us to run a cutter or a toolpath along its profile. So leaving that there, I want to now start exploring some more geometries. First of all, I'm going to turn off those ghost tools. So Control G to turn those off. Let's go up to the Geometry tab, but move across to Special Geometries. And if you press the drop down arrow under Special Geometries, you'll see a whole load of them. So the first one I want to deal with is the polygon. So a polygon is something like a triangle, even a square, a pentagon, hexagon, heptagon, and so on. So call up polygon, and you get a little builder box here to help you build the polygon you're after. So if I want a hexagon, number of sides, 6, diameter of describing circle, let's make that 100, and then you can press redraw and it will draw the shape for you. And as it stands now, it's going to put a polygon, in this case a hexagon, around the circle. So if I press inside, now it leaves the circle describing diameter 100 mil, but it puts the hexagon inside it. So you'll have to decide yourself if you want an inscribed or circumscribed hexagon. So I'll do both. I'll do an inside one and press OK, and it allows me to position it. So I'll position that at the point 25, 100. 25, tab 100, enter. Let's call up another one. This time I'll just make one small change, outside, and press OK. And I'm going to position this one at, let's say, 150, tab 100, enter. So even though the two circles that the hexagons are based on are the exact same size, the hexagons themselves will be very different size. So be very careful about the type of hexagon you want, if indeed you want it to be 100 mil from the flat top to the flat bottom, or in this case, the opposing points are going to be 100 millimeters apart. Let's just try that now with another version. So we're going to call up the polygon again. This time, let's just do 3. The diameter should be 50. Press OK. And now you can see you can drop that on anywhere you like as well. So if I drop that onto the same position there, 150, tab 100, you can see you've got another polygon. In this case, the polygon is an equilateral triangle. So now I want to go to Special Geometries again and move to the next one, which is an ellipse. And the width of this ellipse is going to be 120. Its height is going to be 75, and I can press redraw. Number of quadrants, 4. If I change that to 2 and press redraw, you get a semi-ellipse. But I want a full ellipse, so change that to 4, redraw. Number of arcs per quadrant, if I change that to 10 and press redraw, it simply means it's going to make it slightly more smooth. And we'll get to this in a future lecture, but the ellipse itself is going to be approximated by AlphaCam using a number of arcs. So if you ever draw an arc and you find, an ellipse, and you find it's a little bit jaggedy or not elliptical shaped enough, change the number of arcs per quadrant up. I'm going to leave it at the default of 4 for now. If you wanted to rotate it, you could potentially put in an angle there and press redraw, but again, I'm happy enough with just leaving that at 0 for now. Press OK, and then you can drop it in wherever you feel like it. So I'm going to drop this in at 250, tab 25, enter. Those measurements aren't critical. I'm just laying them all out here because I want you to have all of these on display and uploaded later. So rather than just overlapping them over each other, let's just lay them out in that approximate location. And feel free as well to experiment and add much, much more to this drawing than I'm doing in the videos. So Special Geometries, let's just do another ellipse this time. I'm going to put one at an angle. So I leave all the measurements the same. I'm going to put the rotation angle at 45, redraw, press OK, and if you wanted you could put that at the same point there. I'm going to just drop it in there. Let's now explore the next one. It's the third option. It's bolt hole circle. So the first thing it asks you for is a pitch circle diameter. I'm going to set that to be 150. The diameter of holes will be 20 mil. The number of holes will be 12. And the angle to first hole will be 0. So press redraw. What it does is it lays out a pattern, a circular pattern of holes. So the pitch circle diameter is the purple construction circle That is the diameter of the circle that all the holes are going to rest upon. The diameter of holes is the diameter of all those green holes. The number of holes is the number of them, as you can imagine, going around. Set that back to 12. And if you just didn't want the first hole to be perfectly vertical up there, you could set the first hole at something like 3 or 4 degrees, and it would just rotate them ever so slightly. So when you're happy that the little builder box has done the job for you, and what it looks like in here looks exactly what you want, press OK, and now you can position it where you need it. So I'm going to position this at 400 tab 75, and there I have it. Now remember, if I get over at any point and turn off construction again, I can turn off all the construction lines. I'll leave them on for now. So I'm going to go to special geometries again, call that up again. This time I'm going to do a much smaller one. Let's just say 75. Number of holes again is going to be 12 this time. Diameter holes is going to be 10 this time. The number of holes will be 12. Press redraw, and now I can drop a smaller one in the center there. So it's 400 tab 75, enter. The next one we'll do then is this involute curve. So if I press that, it's going to ask you for the base circle diameter. So let's say that's going to be 50, and the number of quadrants will be 4. Now there's no redraw button here, so if I press OK, you can see what it does. It puts in the involute that way. And it's really that purple circle, that's the diameter of 50 thing I'm after drawing, and that circle unwinds. That's called an involute. The 4, if I change that to 8, what it does is just unwinds it further, and it gives you a spiral in this case. That's what an involute is. So special geometries again, this time it's going to be a slot. This is very useful in engineering, so press slot. The overall length in this case I'm going to make it 150. The end radius will be 25. The angle will be perfectly horizontal, so I'll leave that at 0 and press OK. And now I've got a slot there. Let's try another one. This time I'll keep all the dimensions the same. Just change the angle to 45 degrees, press OK, and you can drop that in where you feel like there. Obviously you can drop those in with coordinates. The next one then is the equi-spaced holes along curve. From another piece of software you might know this as a curve-driven pattern. But if I select that command, the number of holes, the approximate interval, let's say the number of holes. I want 10 holes along a curve, and the diameter of the holes will be 25, and press OK. So let's just double check that once more. I'm going to have 10 of them equi-spaced along a curve, and they will be 25 mil diameters each. So press OK, and I'm going to use this involute curve that I've just created. So click that, press finish, and it takes the overall length of the curve and equi-spaces 10 diameter 25 holes along its length. I'll do the same for this involute. I'm going to say this time I want 20 of them. The diameter will be much smaller, let's say 10 mil. Press OK and click that curve. Then press finish. There we have it. And you can also do that on something like a slot as well. So if I go special geometries, equi-spaced hole, let's leave it at 20 and 10. And if I press OK, select that slot, select finish, it equi-spaces the holes around that geometry as well. Now the next one is this bounding box, or enclosing rectangle as it's called here. An enclosing rectangle allows you to take a piece of geometry such as the spanner in this case, and in a lot of cases when we're mounting pieces of timber or blanks onto the CNC, they'll be square or rectangular. So we're not going to start off with a shape of the spanner. We're going to want to put a rectangle around that, and that rectangle is going to represent the piece of timber from which we'll machine the spanner. And if you want a very precise, very tight bounding box, you can go to Special Geometries, Enclosing Rectangle, select that geometry and press Finish. And it'll put the best fit box around that. Now in some instances you may want a small bit of clearance around that, so in that case what you can go and do is Edit, Offset. Let's just offset it 10 mil and select the box. And now you can see I can actually delete that inner box if you wish. So let's try it now for this ellipse as well, and I know it might actually put it clashing with other materials. That doesn't matter. So Geometry, Special Geometries, Enclosing Rectangle, Finish, and it doesn't in this case. I thought it might clash with this. So let's just try it for the sloped, aligned or angled ellipse there. Finish. Finish. It doesn't actually put it at an angle. It puts its best effort, its best guess at it horizontally lined. Now there's one more command, and before I set this up, I'm just going to draw a shape that looks a little bit like this. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it's a shape that has this concave little groove, this little indentation in it. So I could, of course, go and put the bounding box around that. It does that for me. But if I want a slightly more precise bounding box ever, but without this little indentation, I can use this. This is the convex hull command, and it simply means if I select that and the shape and press finish, it puts a bounding box around it, but it never puts any of those negative indentations, those little concaves in it. So it's put that shape around my shape. It's ignored this shape for me. It's effectively a good way of making blanks or pieces of material the right overall shape, but then that need to be machined afterwards. So in this case, I could machine that outer profile, but then machine out that little indentation afterwards. So when you submit this file, I want you to have a play around with all those special geometries and make sure you're able to at least demonstrate in the graphics window here that you've used them all at least once. Now just one quick example before we sign off this video. This is an example we've been working on in another module. It's this shape sorter exercise, and those red, green and yellow blocks will just be machined elsewhere, but this base needs to be machined on the CNC. Here you can see that there are 9 pockets that need to be removed, and we'll work on the actual process of machining those out afterwards. But for today, I'd like to draw the outline of the shape and include the square, triangle and circle, pattern them along and leave this ready for machining in a future class. Now back in AlphaCam, I actually want to use my nice neat origin, so I'm going to go to Edit, I'm going to go to Move, I'm going to select All, then Finish, and just pick up that and just move it out of the way slightly for now. That will allow me to use my nice simple even coordinates. So geometry, rectangle, the first point is going to be 0 tab 0 enter, and the other point is going to be 200 tab 200 enter. Zooming in, that's what I have. I now want to fillet the corners, so I'm going to go to Edit and then Fillet, and just use a fillet of 10 mil and press OK and select all the edges there. And the first thing I want to do is lay down some construction geometry to help me. So go to Geometry, go to Construction and Line. Now with any luck, when I turn on the snaps, it should pick up the center, but if it doesn't, you can always just turn on the midpoint there. So I'm going to put a midpoint line down like that just to help me. And while I'm at it, I will go to Edit, and I will go to Offset, and I want to offset a distance of 35, and I want to offset geometry. Sorry, I don't have to offset geometry, because offsetting geometry will offset the entire rectangle. I want to just offset a line and an arc, and I want to offset it as construction, so I'll deselect offset as geometry. That means I can select this top line and bring it down, and this line to the right and bring it in. That means that that point, if you look at the instructions in the image on Learn Online, is the center point for a circle, radius 40, that I want to snap on there. I beg your pardon, that should have been diameter 40. We'll try that again, radius 20, and snap that on to the center, the intersection. If it won't pick up the intersection, get down here, select intersection, and then click both of those lines. Now I meant to make that a piece of geometry as opposed to construction, so let's go to Edit, Change from Construction to Geometry, and select the circle and press Finish. Okay, so the square on the left hand side, I'm going to do that in a similar way. You could do it with coordinates. Geometry, or rather Edit, Offset. This time you can see that the square is offset in 15 mil from the top and the bottom. So I'm going to change that to 15 mil, press OK. I'm going to bring the top down 15 and the side in 15, and the square itself needs to be offset 40. So go 40, okay, bring that down and bring that across. And you could do this in a number of different ways. You could trim this out now and change the geometry, or what you could do is geometry, rectangle, and I'm going to pick up carefully that point. So intersection between that line, and then the intersection between that line and that line. And I made the same silly mistake again. I'm after setting that to be construction. So I'll just undo that and I'll deselect this construction box. So turn off construction. Let's do it again. So I'm going to select that line, and then intersection again, that line and that line. And there we have it. Now the equilateral triangle poses a small bit of a problem, because if I go to Special Geometries, Polygon, enter number of sides 3, I don't have any way, even if I go to outside or inside, of determining what the actual length of the side of the triangle is. So even if I press OK, it's just really a guess. So what I'm going to do instead is actually draw it. Now remember, the equilateral triangle has a side of 45. It does not necessarily go to this top point up here. So I'm going to go to Edit, Offset, and it's 45, so I'm going to offset 22.5, and this line goes to the left and it goes to the right. And what I will do, go to Geometry and Line, and I'm going to draw. I have to be careful to pick up the intersection. So the intersection between that line, and the intersection between that line and that line, and press Escape. I've now drawn the triangular base of the shape, or the straight line of the shape. So now I'm going to go to Edit and Rotate, select that line, select Finish, select its endpoint, and I want to rotate that through 60 degrees, but it's not actually 60 degrees, it's 60 degrees measured from over here, so it's actually 360 minus 60, which is 300, and press OK. How many of them do I want, including the original? 2, enter. And now if you wanted, you could rotate it again, but it's much easier in this case to pick up a line, picking up the endpoint of that line, and the endpoint of that line gives you the triangle. And you can see it just doesn't go up to the top there. That was in our, that's not a mistake, that was in our instructions. So let's pattern that down now to finish it off. I'm going to go to Edit, I'm going to go to Array. It asks me what I want to pattern, so I'm going to select the square, the triangle, and the circle. Press Finish. And the number of them in the X, well, I don't want any of them in the X. Well, I do, I want one of them in the X, obviously. But the number of them in the Y then will be 3. And I'm going to try a displacement of 60. So let's see how that works. Press OK. OK, I went the wrong direction, so I'll quickly do that again. I'm going to go to Array. Press Finish. I want 1 in the X, I want 3 in the Y, but the displacement in Y is actually going to be minus 60. I was a bit careless there. If I press OK, that works great. I'm now going to go to the construction lines and turn those off for a second. And if I go to, in fact, I probably should have done 65 there just to make sure the gap at the top and the bottom are the same, but it's fine. So I'm going to go to View and ISO, and I've got all of this geometry. And coming down the track in the next couple of videos, it's important that we have a 3D block here to machine from. So what I can do is go to 3D, Set Materials. I'm going to pick the edge of that square, and the material top is going to be 0, and the material bottom will be minus 20. Then if I press OK, it will actually make a solid block, the shape that I need, ready for me to pocket or machine out all of those 9 solids. And you can do that for any of these things. Even if I wanted to machine out that spanner, 3D, Set Materials, select the edge. We'll worry about what the Z means later. Set it to 0 and minus 20, and there we have it. So that's where we're going pretty soon with the software. But for now, View ISO, View XY. Please make sure you get all of those things drawn, dropped here into the same model space, into the same file, and get that uploaded to Learn Online within 10 days of this video first being made available. Okay, so thanks for your attention, and I'll talk to you next time.